Lee Summit is your destination for big city vibes and small town charm.
Head to the downtown Lee Summit Farmers Market, where local meets fresh. Then grab a cup of coffee and discover a variety of shops and boutiques just around the corner. Continue the fun in downtown Lee Summit at a retro arcade bar. Discover your new beer at one of our 6 locally owned breweries. Cool off with some handcrafted cocktails at happy hour. End the night with live music and good company. Lee Summit, Missouri.
Hello, Lee Summit. I'm Laura, and this is your flash briefing for the week of November 18th. Heads up, Jackson County taxpayers. Lee Summit City Hall is currently unable to process tax payments, print receipts, or create waivers. Taxpayers are advised to visit a Jackson County location or pay online at jacksongov.org. City Council will meet for regular session Tuesday night, 6 in council chambers in City Hall. Meetings are open to the public or watch live on the city's YouTube channel. If you can't watch, catch the recorded meeting on demand on the YouTube channel or by subscribing to the Council Debrief newsletter, which breaks down 3 to 4 key agenda items. Subscribe at cityofls.net. Head to Howard Station Park on November 22nd as we light downtown in thousands of sparkling lights for the mayor's tree lighting at 6:30 p.m. This year's theme is Miracle on Main Street. Enjoy shopping, musical performances, a visit from Santa and Mrs. Claus, and much more to get you into the holiday spirit. Holiday shopping is in full swing. Need a stocking stuffer? Check out the Lee Summit Marketplace located in the lobby of City Hall. It has great items like Lee Summit branded socks, Tervis tumblers, coasters, and more. Show off your Lee Summit pride. It's open 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. And have you ever wondered how your local government works, how the city budget is developed, and where the city gets its water? The Citizens Leadership Academy will help answer those questions and more. Tour facilities and learn about the inner workings of city government from city leaders and elected officials. Participants will attend 7 sessions beginning in January. Applications are accepted through December 13th and space is limited. Find the application on the city's website. Thanks for listening and have a great week.
Welcome to the Lee Summit Sign Department. We are going to walk you through our process from start to finish. We make signs as needed here. It's not like we just go out into the field and place a speed limit sign here, no parking here. Our traffic engineers, they go through and they'll do field studies. They'll send us down an engineering work order for us to go out, place new signs or remove signs as needed. Coming from the material, our blanks come in and they're just aluminum blanks. We can put our white, our red, our fluorescent yellow, green, whatever. And basically what it looks like is just that there. Throw it up into the roller. And once we got it covered, take it to our work table here, and Tim will cut the corners, cut all the access off to where it's lined up right. As far as the plotter and the software that we use, there's a street name sign there, and he's gonna go ahead and print that out on the plotter so you can see the plotter and how it operates and runs. There's standards for the height, even just on letters on the sign blank. Basically what we have on the computer there is it's pretty much set up to those. And it goes through, it's got a very small but sharp needle that goes through and cuts everything out, letter by letter. Once that's done cutting, our next stage would be bringing it over here. Currently picking out the sign letters right now. We call it weeding or picking or however you want to call it. Next, putting it on the transfer tape. Then after it's taped, we bring it over to the roller. That's where we apply it to the actual sign blank. And we'll roll it through one time just to get the air bubbles out. And the last stage is basically just taking the transfer tape off the front of it. And there's a finished product of the street name sign. We'll take you out to the field and show you our process that we go through. We're going to go out and follow our sign guys and get something installed for you. This is where we check our underground utilities. Tim, you got AT&T?
AT&T's back here.
Evergy, Google, so we should be good to go. We normally put all of our stuff together out in the field. Then once the base is installed, we'll go ahead and put the post in there. We've come up to perfect. And that's how we do it. Simple, quick.
Member Pryor.
Thank you, Mayor. Quite a few of us are getting questions. I know I've gotten a few questions about the plan, so I didn't know if, just for the public knowledge. I'm not a politician. I feel like I'm just an average person in Lee Summit. They have a football field set up. Inside these cones are their football field. Our two-car garage is we're gonna bring the driveway back through here, and it's gonna go right here. And then, so my family has chickens. When we first got chickens, my husband said, don't treat them as your pets, treat them as chickens, because we're going to be eating the eggs, and I would like to use them for meat. So don't treat them as your pets. Well, we now have 6 chickens that I consider my pets, and I will not let him kill for meat. So we live downtown, and we love living downtown. These are my children. The first one's Lincoln, and Amira, and Sophia, and Caleb. This is a great neighborhood. Downtown is one big community, and all of the kids get together and they play basketball, and we like to walk to the farmer's market. Here, hold my hand. It's an easy walk, probably less than 10 minutes. The farmer's market has always been a very important part of my life and my family's life. As a matter of fact, when my daughter started kindergarten, I dropped her off and I was going shopping at the farmer's market right behind Lee Summit Elementary. And I was teary-eyed because she was my first and she was going off to kindergarten. And Terry, the butterfly lady, the one that's in the purple shirt, and she used to make little butterfly stickers for everyone, she gave me a big hug and was just so empathetic to the fact that my daughter had just started school. How are you guys doing? Doing well, how are you? Yeah, very good. A lot of the farmers there, they've watched my kids grow up. I love Lee Summit in general. I love that it still has a small town feel while embracing growth and the arts and diversity. And I feel like downtown specifically embodies that. My kids go to Lee Summit Elementary, and a lot of their teachers live downtown, and a lot of the business owners from downtown live downtown. So when we're out walking downtown, we see so many people we know. I lived in Africa until I was 5, and then we moved to the United States, and I've lived in Lee Summit since. A lot of my childhood, my mom was a single mom, and I feel like I was essentially raised by my community and being on council, and it's just such an important way to give back to the community that raised me.
I state your name.
I, Mia Pryor,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I possess the qualifications
this day of April 2022. The election process was fun. I got to go door to door and talk to people, which is my absolute favorite thing to do, is talking to people and learning about people. I even had people inviting me into their house for dinner or inviting me back to their house to meet their spouse. And I knocked on a door, and the lady that answered the door was my kindergarten teacher. So it was a lot of fun. Is it on? Hi everyone, I'm Councilmember Mia Pryor. Thank you very much for coming tonight. I have one on, can you not? Okay. Maybe I went. I love being a council rep for District 1. I know everyone says this, but District 1 is by far, in my opinion, the best district. Raintree Lake, that's part of District 1. I love that community. Actually, my husband and I got married at the clubhouse in Raintree Lake. I really love all of South Lee Summit. I love the growth that they're going to be experiencing soon and that they've already experienced. I wanted to say that if you guys have a concern, please come tell us what your concern is, because we can only address and help with what we know. We're there to kind of bridge that gap between constituents in the city, and we're the voice of our constituents, and we can go to the city and voice what their concerns are, what their ideas are. So if you have a concern, definitely make us aware. So my big priorities are public safety. That's always one of my top priorities. I've always wanted to make sure that first responders were supported. I think that that's super important to me and to many in our city. But also, I wanted to influence the growth in Lee Summit. I wanted to influence the type of businesses we get here and the type of activities there are to do for our families. If we're going to continue to grow downtown, how important it is to focus on people that already live here and the infrastructure we already have in place.
Our first presentation tonight is going to be Assistant City Manager Ryan Elam, who is going to talk about that very exciting Farmers Market Plaza.
But I want to show you the most recent rendering, fly-through video of that. That's really the best way to kind of get a good sense of what this will look like in the near future.
To see it developing into something as big as it's going to be across from City Hall is super exciting to me. I can't wait for it to get built and to start welcoming people into what the farmers market's going to be, but also everything else that goes along with that development. Okay. You want to hold it? Don't drop it.
Perfect. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
Have a good rest.
I'm just an average person in Lee Summit that wanted to be a voice of many that sometimes feel like they don't have a voice. Yeah, I'm not a politician. I'm just a mom that cares.
as well as putting in some rock and some landscaping irrigation that was not included in the original project. So those are the three items in that budget amendment, and if anyone has any questions.
Entry, and that, the landscaping and all that, is that the next ordinance that we have on the agenda?
Yes, that's the next item on the budget, or
Gotcha.
I'm sorry, on the agenda.
Gotcha. Do we have any questions or discussion from the committee?
Yeah, I do have a quick
Yes,
question.
please.
So, Mr. Gentry, most of these amendments have something to do with more of the bond funding versus regular budget items.
Yes, these are all different funds than the general fund. The business industry fund is for the public service agreement. The equipment replacement program, that's a separate fund that they pay into each year as part from their general fund. It's part of the budget process. They have itemized equipment they're replacing, just like we do our vehicles. We have public safety equipment identified. And then the third one is bond funds that were issued previously for the issuance back in 2022. I think it was maybe in 21 election when we passed the original bonds for fire stations 4 and 5.
So it's a combination of all.
So a combination of all those,
Gotcha.
yes, sir.
Okay, that answers my question. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Do you have any other questions? Seeing none, I would look for a motion.
Chair, I move to advance to the City Council with a recommendation of approval, TMP-3191, an ordinance approving Amendment 3 to the budget. June 30th, 2025, as adopted by ordinances 9936, 9939, and 9940 by amending the authorized expenditures for the city.
Second?
We have a motion by Councilmember DeMoro, second by Mayor Protem Lopez, to move TMP 3191 to council with a recommendation of approval. Can we get a vote, please?
Thank you, Chair. Councilmember Carlisle.
Aye.
Councilmember DeMauro.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Lopez.
Aye.
Chair Shields.
Aye. All right, next item is TMP 3197, an ordinance authorizing award of bid number 2024-030 for the purchase and installation of landscaping, rock and lawn irrigation systems for fire stations 4 and 5 to Horizon Lawn and Landscape LLC in the amount of $87,315, and authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement for the same by and on behalf of the city.
Good afternoon. Kevin McCostas, Chief of the Fire Department. As stated earlier, this was for the rock and lawn sprinkler system for the new stations 4 and 5. This was in our original scope for these projects, but as we were getting close to the end of our packet, we thought this was an item that those costs were a little high at that time, and this was an item that could be added later when the appropriate funds were available. And now, since those are available, we'd like to ask the council for approval on that. Part of that is to maintain a low maintenance exterior and then to be a good neighbor with our residents at our commercial properties in its proximity. So, thank you.
Questions or discussion from the committee?
Chair? I move to recommend for approval to full City Council TMP-3197, an ordinance authorizing award of bid number 2024-030 for the purchase and installation of landscape, rock, and lawn irrigation systems for fire stations 4 and 5 to Horizon Lawn and Landscape LLC in the amount of $87,315, and authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement for the same by and on behalf of the city.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mayor Protem Lopez, second by Councilmember DeMoro, to advance TMP 3197 to City Council with a recommendation of approval. Can we get a vote, please?
Chair, Councilmember Carlisle.
Aye.
Councilmember DeMauro.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Lopez.
Aye.
Chair Shields.
Aye. All right, next item, 2024-6637, presentation and continued discussion of unassigned general fund reserve balance. Considerations for funding. Mr. Dunning.
Thank you, Chair Shields. Mark Dunning, City Manager. Pull up my spreadsheet here again. Are you able to read that, or would it be easier for me to pull up the spreadsheet and zoom in even further? You good? Oh.
I think we're all set. Mayor Protem Lopez, is that okay for you?
It worked. Nice job.
Is it's big enough for you?
Yeah, that's fine, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay, I can switch back in
Oh,
if
it's
need
fine,
be.
it works. I'm impressed.
So this is our spreadsheet that we've put together. We've reformatted this a little differently since the last time we talked about unallocated general fund reserve, because at that meeting, the Finance and Budget Committee gave us staff some direction to pursue things further or put a pin in things. And so in a sense, we kind of prioritized some of these ideas. So I'll walk you through this real quick, kind of a status update on our efforts here. The compensation study, I'll be referencing notes over here that we'll keep track of here. So I think as I mentioned to you previously, we're doing a phase one scoping effort right now, and that's already funded. So that would not come out of this unallocated general fund reserve. But we're anticipating somewhere between $300,000 and $500,000 for that effort. So our hope is by, we'll say, the original target was by the end of this year, we'll be done with phase one and have a good awareness of what is it that we're seeking for our compensation pay and growth plan, as we're calling it. Once we have that scoping done, we can better identify what's that going to take. So we're still in that process. We're hoping to conclude the phase one approach here by end of the year, beginning of 2025, so that scoping study would be better defined so that we can hone in a little tighter on what this might cost us. So that work's still in progress on that with completing that phase one approach. So that's still in the pursue section there. The convex traffic safety mirrors for downtown alleys, so that is really a nominal cost. It's just determining where might those locations be and working with property owners to get agreements in place to pursue those. So that's something that, quite honestly, I think we're lumping with, in some regards, the barricades, safety barriers for downtown events. So I'll jump to that one real quick and skip World Cup there and come back and pick that one up. At the last Finance and Budget Committee meeting that this was talked about, there was a presentation on what those entail. And at the time, the direction was, okay, we had $1,030,000 to $1,095,000 in there, and we'll say that was maybe a bare bones approach to get us to a somewhat of a comfort level for these downtown events, with the understanding that these barriers can be used throughout the community. It's not just for downtown events. So the discussion was, hey, if we need to up it a little bit so we can all sleep a little better at night, let's do that. So $2 million was targeted. The team, I'll call it the safety barrier team, has regrouped after that discussion, got a new and updated quote with what we could sleep well at night with. And so we just got that end of last week. So that's not in your packet. I'm sharing this with you first time tonight. And quite honestly, I need to step back. This spreadsheet is not the one that's in your packet. This is reformatted a little bit differently, but is generally the same information. So that quote was $1.26 million. So we've dialed that in a little tighter. What we haven't solved for yet is where do we store these? Where do we keep these? So that's what we're working on now. So we'll continue to pursue those so that we can acquire those safety barriers and put them to use here in the community. So the hope is that we'll come back. We've got a storage solution, storage ideas. We'll add that in and then be ready to move forward with those barriers. On the World Cup front, a lot has happened in that space. There's numerous discussions still taking place about planning for World Cup. We know that it's really not a chamber-sponsored, but it's through the chamber that the community has come to, stakeholders throughout the community have come together to really start putting a focus in on different areas that are going to be necessary for that World Cup. Think safety, security, think Councilmember Shields, I know you and I are on the legal local government team, and hospitality and entertainment, those types of stakeholders are coming together to really put some thought around the World Cup and planning, quite honestly, behind the World Cup. So there's a local effort that's taking place right now. We certainly know on the regional side, KC 2026 is still working on identifying leads for certain areas within the region, transportation being one of the key ones, safety and security, there's numerous ones. And then Mid-America Regional Council is helping coordination on this front too. But we have started the work on planning for what might we anticipate in Lee Summit from a special event perspective, and think public safety overtime and things of that nature. So we're starting to put some assumptions of that. We don't have it ready quite yet, but we are working on preparing that information as directed by the last time we talked about this at Finance and Budget. Communication strategy is one that we identified it as a pursue, so we're doing the scoping for the work for that RFP to get that out as well, recognizing that all of these need to come forward again, right, to Finance and Budget, and then ultimately to the City Council for approval. On the equipment replacement program front, just a placeholder, $3 million, as you see in there. We do have the final, I'll call it draft report, so we're getting close to having that completed so that we can hone in a little better on that. That's why we put a pin in that one, because we're really waiting on that final report to come out. Browning property, that's an idea there on that requires further discussion. It's purely just an estimate on how do we utilize that property just north of the Public Works Operations Facility, knowing that we have, I want to say it's about 76 acres there, that we know we need to make sure the post-closure fund for the landfill is solved for out of that property, but what other opportunities does that present for the city from either our use, or do we open that up for private development and open up that area for that type of use? Here's another update on, I've retitled this. It used to be Joint Operations Facility Tower. That was really not a good descriptor for that. It's more our communication infrastructure. So it is a component of that is the tower that currently exists over there, but we know we'll need to put a new tower over there at greater height. What's also come into play is we're operating off microwave systems, and we're getting into technology, public safety that's way above my pay grade, so I'll phone friends when I need to on this one. But we've learned a lot about how our connections with the Mars radio systems and how we go about our dispatching with outside agencies through this process. So we know there's going to be a number there to solve. We're dialing in. That was a preliminary estimate. We're dialing in more specifics on that as we've learned more about those systems. So fully anticipate, hopefully by next meeting, we'll have that one dialed in as well as to what that looks like for those types of needs. An update on the community gateway monuments. We had here for $300,000 to $500,000, just a ballpark estimate. I attended Lee Summit Industrial Development Authority meeting on November 15th, and they verbally indicated to me that they are willing to commit $100,000 to the projects. So I spoke with them about, we don't even know what those estimates are. We would need to look at first bringing on a design professional to evaluate the two sites, come up with some concepts. They could do a preliminary estimate on what it might take to construct those. So I think a phased approach to these makes a lot of sense. Let's first solicit design professionals to help us with that and do some of that estimating. And they were certainly open to that. So I requested they send something to me in writing, but definitely mentioned it's on the list, and I'll bring that forward to the Finance and Budget Committee to know that that's a renewed commitment. I want to say it's been increased from what they originally had maybe shared, so $100,000 towards that. It'd be the south and the east where we don't have those gateway monuments. And we did talk a little bit about, do they need to be the same as the north and the south? And I think the consensus was they don't need to be identical. They can be different, but we are lacking the south and the east gateway corridors, and that would balance out the city. And then the last one was an idea, property acquisition. Is there property out there that perhaps might be needed? We as staff are not aware of any right now, but that doesn't mean there couldn't be something out there in the future. So that's a quick update on the rundown. As you can see down at the bottom, what we've committed so far out of this process was $7 million towards the Green Street project across the street. But we are pursuing these based on the direction we got at the last time we talked about this at Finance and Budget. So we're getting closer, but I can't sit here today and say here's some exact numbers to make these things happen. So with that, be happy to answer questions or provide any additional information that may be helpful.
Thank you, Mr. Dunning. So there are a couple of things I wanted to touch on with this. One is just the reformatting that Mr. Dunning mentioned. We discussed with staff organizing this by having the things that we're actively working on the top of the list, and the things that we've pinned kind of that we're not forgetting about but are kind of on hold at the bottom, and then adding a column with just some of those kind of brief status notes that we can all see where things are at in the process, and thought that'd be helpful for both staff and council to kind of keep track of what's going on with those. I believe our next audit for the budget year that just wrapped up is coming soon, so then this is going to get updated with those numbers. Is that right? Since right now we're working off of FY23 and we're going to update to show FY24 that's
Yep,
done.
that's correct. That's kind of how I was going to wrap this up, is that we'll be recalculating these percentages again and seeing where we sit based on that financial audit.
And we did add to the fund balance in that fiscal year, is that right?
We are anticipating adding to the fund balance.
Okay.
That's correct.
So we'll have even more funds to
Opportunities to invest.
program in the community, absolutely. So I'd open it up to the committee. A couple of things that I kind of wanted to get your input on today is, like on World Cup, we're still doing homework, but do we want to start thinking about earmarking some funds just so that we don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but we don't want to not have funding allocated for that? So do we want to think about that now, or do we want to give staff a little bit more time to put together some more numbers? And then, since we've mentioned the Gateway monuments possibly having some matching funding, do we want to kind of move that up into more active? Is that the thought, Mr. Dunning?
Certainly could.
Okay, so couple things I'd love to get the committee's feedback on, and then any other questions or discussion that you guys have. So, yeah. Anybody want to start us off?
Mr. Dunning, I have a couple questions. The Browning property that we have right now, is that, the infrastructure's already in there, right? So when we're looking at this possible number of doing some improvements, what does that entail?
Yes.
And I'm assuming the infrastructure is in there.
So not necessarily, right? If we know that Browning, not Browning, that's Hamlin Road. It was owned by the Browning family. Hamlin Road, depending on what is developed down there, there may need to be improvements as development continues to occur south of that area, Newberry Landings area. We go to, it's an unimproved road, right? Doesn't have curb and gutter and things of that nature. So depending on how that area develops, again, this ties back to, you've heard me say, we treat ourselves no different than the development community. So those would be considerations. From a sanitary sewer perspective, I'm just thinking about our sanitary sewer layout down there and how things flow. I don't think it's, I'm looking at Ryan or Michael. I think there would be some infrastructure that would be necessary, again, depending on how that property is developed out or utilized.
Ryan Nealon, Assistant City Manager. So yeah, Mr. All right. Did anybody else hear me there? All right. That's way louder. In short, again, lateral lines would need to be installed. Roadways would need to be installed, all depending upon what the final use of that property would be. We've been looking at it from a couple of different perspectives, with the first perspective being that the solid waste fund would need to be made whole on that, and that is essentially about a $2.8 million plus or minus, maybe $3 million that would need to be transferred over to that fund for the post-closure fund overall. And then from a city perspective, there's several uses considering like a debris field. It's also a potential location for the Connex box storage, the storage of the barricades, as well as currently utilizing that property for vac truck spoils and staging areas and things like that overall. And given the proximity to maintenance facility and some other stuff, in the future that could be a location for expansion of our operations, as well as still leaving room for the frontage to be potentially developed privately.
And we're done with that property as far as the closure, as far as fill, using the top soil or whatever you call it, right?
Correct.
I believe so, but Michael's coming down now.
Uh-oh, I am causing a lot of trouble here.
You're fine. It's a really good question. We are done using it for all of our landfill purposes. Landfill has reached closure, and DNR has given closure to the landfill. The only retainage we have for it is for the post-closure fund. Because it was bought with those funds for the landfill, we have to ensure its closure and operations and sustainability over the next 30 years. So part of that fiscal model is recovering the cost that was put into the Browning property, and that's what Mr. Elam was referring to.
Thank you. Thank you all. And I'll be brief on my next two questions, and that is the World Cup. I've not been able to go to the that I think you guys had. Would this be money that we would set aside for our own city, or is there any talk of partnering with neighboring cities and building a huge fund and using it through that, or is this just for us? I say us, for Lee Summit.
Yeah, so far we've been thinking us as Lee Summit, right? What might we anticipate? What are some assumptions, right? What kinds of services might we expect, and what kind of costs related to that? I'm aware that from more of a regional basis, right, with Kansas City being a host city, that there is an anticipated request to say, hey, how can you partner with us, and then what do you get in return, right? But at least the meetings I've been to is like, communities have to plan for that. You have to budget for that, and what might we expect, and there hasn't been a number. So that's one of in that uncertain bucket that we have that still is yet to be clarified. But there hasn't, I will share it, I haven't been part of discussions saying, okay, Eastern Jackson County, how can we pool our funds in more of a regional sense, like what you just described.
So if we're asked, we may, right now what we're talking about is for us.
Correct.
And then my third question is the monuments. I think it's a good idea. I would be on the side of not as large as our first two monuments, to not just to keep costs down, but we run into, and I assume that would be in MoDOT right away, right?
That's correct.
We run into, will they maintain the ground around it? And so that's one of the big drawbacks. But I would like to see a smaller monument or smaller monuments and than what we have now, to keep the cost down but be effective also.
I can tell you the North Monument up near the Lakewood area, that one is one where MoDOT only mows, 3 times a year? And so that's something that through our memorandum of understanding between Public Works and Parks, how do we maintain these areas? And so we provided an enhanced level of mowing and service up around that monument, right? Now the one on the west side, 470 out by View High, it's in a natural bluff area, so there's really no mowing. It's more native landscaping that's over there, but that does take some time as well, and we do that through a MOU with Parks as well. So as we've put these in, there's an enhanced level of service that goes into that, just to keep them looking a little nicer than the maintenance that MoDOT provides to those areas.
Reflects on us. It reflects on the city.
Correct. And my apologies, I skipped over one that I know Councilmember DeMoro, you're passionate about, is the funding of the sidewalk gaps for $1 million. So that's something that, you know, if we get that direction, we can move that forward and pursue that as well, so.
That one I would like to stay on the pursue level, yeah. All right, thank you, Mr. Dunning, thank you, Chair.
Do you have other comments or questions on those items?
I'll just give you my comments. I mean, I think all these are good ideas. I do think that we should kind of move that Gateway Monument up since we do have somebody willing to help us fund that. That's a great thing right there. And then, where was the other one? I'm sorry, I'm looking. Oh, World Cup. So as far as the World Cup, you know, I don't even know how much money. Like, I have no idea how much money we should even set aside for that, like, at all. So I could say, sure, yeah, we should set something aside for something, but I have no idea what that is or for what. So I think maybe we're a little bit early on that, and we need to have at least some kind of idea of what we might set it aside for, because then we can kind of think about what that might cost, right?
Yeah, and I've mentioned this too. The World Cup is sandwiched between Downtown Days and Legacy Blast in a way. And so to me, it'd be helpful to say, okay, what's that data telling us? And let's, you know, how can we take and put some assumptions to costs? And let's at least see what that looks like and feels like. So we owe that to you.
I think that'd be a great idea. So, do you have anything else, question-wise? Did I touch it all?
I think those were the two that I kind of
Okay.
questions on. So will you be looking at data for past years of, you know, what we've spent for public safety on Downtown Days and Legacy Blast, and kind of starting from there and coming forward with a proposal?
Put some assumptions, yeah,
Okay.
together. And I know we kind of talked about this in those community teams meetings as we were collaborating before we really dug into the work, is just, you know, we know there's going to be a strong desire for businesses to encourage folks to visit their establishments. And so to what level does that trigger special use permits, special events permits that draws on that need for safety and security for those types of events? And we know that within this region, we're going to be challenged with personnel because it's not just Lee Summit, right? And so from a law enforcement perspective, safety and security details and things like that, there's going to be a large demand for that.
I think that's has there been any discussion with programming of the new Market Plaza that
Sorry, I cut you off there.
Oh, I was just going to say, I know we've had kind of high-level discussions about how important it is to program it throughout the day and in different events and things like that, but is this kind of being incorporated into what that might look like for those couple of months?
As we've already considered, you know, with the opening of that space in June timeframe of 25, planning for World Cup already, what kinds of events from a calendaring perspective might be held over there, that's certainly been starting to be explored.
Sounds like we're all in consensus, continue on the homework on that and start homing in on a number, at least that we can earmark some funding and know that that's going to be committed. And then as far as the monuments go, I feel like we're in consensus to move that into the pursue category, and I assume you'll start putting together kind of some ideas, some proposals about what those might look like. I'm open on what size they are. I don't know how that impacts the budget for it. I'm sure larger costs more, but when you're doing the whole project of, you know, design and land acquisition and everything else, I don't know how big of a role that plays, and then the ongoing maintenance expenses and.
Correct. Yeah,
So.
and we can take cues from the previous projects on what those cost. I know we pursued them through different arrangements. Each one was done through a little bit different arrangement. But yeah, we can, and the thing there too is we can bring forward that agreement, cooperative agreement with the IDA and start putting some efforts together there to formalize that.
Maybe kind of some sort of AB options on what you're thinking in terms of bigger or smaller, or, just so that we can kind of see the range of possibilities and decide how much funding to earmark towards it? About right to everybody?
Yeah, we do. I know when we did the Blackwell Road interchange, there was an area specifically discussed when they did that interchange design. I'm looking, Michael's shaking his head on that one. And then I think we have a few ideas for the one down south as well.
Start on the homework/pursue and we'll.
Yeah, and we wouldn't really need to acquire the property. It's through a license agreement. Is that the right term, Michael, with MoDOT?
Yeah, so actually, we've had some early conversations with MoDOT about the pre-planned stage area for that monument over at Blackwell and 50 as you're heading into town. It's just between the off-ramp there at Blackwell and Main Line, protected behind some barricade or barrier areas. And MoDOT initially was like not so sure. There might be some sign relocations, but I think they're more than willing to work with us to try to implement that as was originally approved. And it would require an agreement. We just had an agreement come through City Council not too long ago for the monument up off of Bolin Road.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Dunning, is there anything else that you're looking for feedback at this point, or just kind of general updates today? Or
General updates today. We're getting closer to finalizing some numbers here. And then, just as we mentioned, we'll do the calculation again and see where we sit for after we get through the financial audit.
Other questions or discussion? All right, next item on our agenda, thank you, Mr. Dunning, is 2024-6640, a report of the investment portfolio reports for the quarter ended September 30, 2024.
Oops. Sorry, I missed it. Tried to get you off.
Good afternoon. Susan Brockhouse, Cash Management Officer for Treasury. I am pleased to be able to present the investment summary for the quarter ended September 30, 2024. The investment portfolio represents the city's financial resources that are pooled for investment purposes. As you can see on this distribution by security sector, our total investment portfolio as of September 30, 2024 was $292,873,152. Of that, 75.8% was invested in Treasury securities, 8.1% in U.S. government agency securities. We had 8.4% in demand deposits, and the remaining balance of 7.7% is our MOSIP, the Missouri Securities Investment Program, which is our general obligation bond proceeds that have not yet been expended. The investment diversification, which is part of our investment policy, shows that we are compliant with the city's investment policy for our diversification standards. The funds are invested with safety and liquidity as our primary objectives, but they are invested in a manner to provide a market rate of return while meeting our daily cash flow needs. Looking at the market value of distribution by maturity range, you'll note that we had 18.7% of our portfolio invested with maturity of less than 6 months, 18.8% 6 months to 1 year, 22.9% with maturity date of 1 to 2 years, and then 27.4% between 3 to 5 years. As a reminder, with the exception of repurchase agreements, our maturity of investments can be for up to 5 years from the purchase date. Looking at our maturities for the first quarter of fiscal year 2025, we did have 9 securities mature. Their yield ranges were 0.41% to 0.917%. We have invested in 4 securities during this time with a total par value of $18 million. The yields on these new purchases range from 3.456% to 4.397%. We do competitively bid for our investments. We have 8 firms that we receive bids. Typically, we get 5 to 7 very highly competitive bids. And our mark-to-market adjustment for the first quarter is just over 5.5 million. Questions?
Thank you, Chair. Susan, I noticed that, and I could ask the question, but I'll just ask, the MOSIP funds, those are the distributions from the general obligation bonds, correct?
Those are the funds from our bonds, yes, that have not been expended yet.
And I
Okay.
noticed that figure is not, is on the distributions by maturity. I noticed that figure, the MOSIP,
I excluded that simply because
Okay.
it's really restricted in use, and so,
so it's not interest-bearing. There is no maturity, right?
well, that's true. There are certain obligations that we have in terms of when those funds are used. But we don't include them in the distribution that we're showing here because they'll be drawn down as we expend the funds.
But, so there is no maturity. I mean, and I equate maturity with interest-bearing, that we're going to get something, if we long enough, we get something back. But that's
Not in the
basically
sense
my
that you're-
question. Is that not correct?
Well, so the maturity on those, they're going to be less than a year.
Right, for the spend down of the bond proceeds?
We're expecting that they'll be spent down in less than 1 year.
Yeah. So that timetable, it's just not included in there, but the expectation is they're not being held for investment purposes. As we spend them down, we'll draw down on those.
Not an interest-bearing account.
They do.
It is in an interest-bearing account.
They do, and those interest earnings go back into the project essentially or into the payment of debt.
So for the purpose of maturity, market value, then that figure, we could think 70 without the, I mean, I maybe I'm asking it wrong, but I'm just curious why that figure was omitted.
Really, just for transparency, I want you to be able to see what our remaining balance is in our MOSIP.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Susan. Thank you.
Other questions?
Questions from the committee?
Okay, thank you.
Next item is roundtable. Do we have any roundtable from the committee? I think I already kind of mentioned my items when we talked about the fund balance, so continuing to work on that. Any roundtable from staff?
Not at this time. Thanks.
Adjourn this meeting at 4:41 p.m.